Welcome into the Rauf Report. We're talking about the biggest takeaway from the last night of college basketball action. Most exciting game that I watched last night was that BYU Iowa State game where BYU won in overtime. The Cougars led by as many as 21 points before Iowa State had that awesome comeback. It was just a wildly entertaining game. But what BYU did, both with the mental fortitude to withstand Iowa State's comeback and recuperate, win in overtime, also just go win in Ames was incredibly impressive. And it's indicative of the way this BYU team has been playing recently. So I wanted to take this Ralph report to dive into how BYU has been playing recently and why we need to start taking them very seriously as potentially like a second weekend, maybe even Final Four contender if things break the right way. Uh, they had a really good non-conference portion of their schedule, at least from a record standpoint. Got into Big 12 play, was pretty dicey early January. They had those losses at TCU and at Utah in mid-January that if you were like me, kind of wrote BYU off, right? Where you're kind of like, okay, this is a solid team, but they're struggling in Big 12 play. Maybe they're not quite ready for this, right? That's certainly fine. That's what I did. But particularly of late, they are showing some things that are incredibly, incredibly impressive since their last seven games, won all seven in a row. They're the second best team in the country on T rank, just behind Duke in terms of their efficiency metrics. They are have five quad one wins in that time frame. They've beaten Kansas, they've beaten Arizona, and now they've beaten Iowa State. Iowa State coming on the road. Five quad one wins during the 7 game stretch, which is the most anybody has had in these last 7 games. Their wins above bubble, which is a metric that measures how an average bubble team would do against your schedule and how many wins above that average bubble team you would have. 4.1 is the most in the country during that time period. This run that they've been on has been spearheaded by their offense. The defenses have played pretty well, certainly, but the offense has gotten back to being that dynamic unit that we thought they would be when Kevin Young first got the job and what they looked like early on in the season with Jaeger Demon passing ball everywhere and just the multitude of guys who were able to contribute. And that's one of the things that has really spearheaded this as well is just the number of guys on the roster who are contributing. Richie Saunders has emerged as the leading scorer. He's one of the most efficient scorers, most efficient shooters in the country. He's averaging over 16 points per game. But then you have 8 other guys who are averaging between 5.9 and less than 11 points per game. So you have 8 players in the rotation. 2 are averaging double figures. Yegor Demon just over 10, and Richie Saunders at 16 plus. And then you have a whole nother guys. You're basically all your rotation is between 5.9 and 9.2 points per game. 7 guys are in that range. That's elite depth. You're not just having guys you can throw on the court and be comfortable with. You're having guys you can throw on the court and they're contributing at a high level, right? And you have Saunders as a scorer, but you have other guys who could step up. Demon as a playmaker, making everything work offensively. Tata has been a phenomenal rebounder and shot blocker for them this season. He was huge on the glass in that Iowa State game. Helped make some key plays late that helped them kind of stave off that Iowa State comeback. It's been a lot of fun to watch this team during this stretch because they're playing some really, really good basketball. But it goes back further than just that stretch, too. If you go back to how they've been playing since that loss to Utah, which happened on January 18th, their first game after that was on January 21st. So since that time, they are 11 and 2. Obviously, the 7 game win streak's in there. They were 4 and 2 before that. They're playing with the seventh best team in the country over the last month and a half, according to Torvik, with a top 3 offense, a defense that's top 50, certainly good enough. The quad one wins have come during this last 7 game stretch, which is why you don't hear a lot about that first 6 games where they went 4 and 2. But they've been playing at a really high level now for quite some time, a level that's good enough for them to make a deep run in March. You don't see it often with first year head coaches doing so. But Justin Young is somebody who, or Kevin Young, excuse me, Justin Young, the GM. Kevin Young has been around coaching for a while, and he was held in such high regard that this is not necessarily a surprise that BYU is doing this and he is doing this. Maybe it's a surprise that the turnaround has happened, but it's not a surprise that he is having success. This BYU team, the way they're playing recently, is legit. And you always want to peak at the right time in college basketball. We talk all the time about this in March Madness, how you want to be the best teams, but perhaps more important than what you did during the season is who is playing at their best right now. BYU is playing at their best right now, and their best is one of the best teams in the country that could potentially take them all the way to San Antonio.